What is going on, you guys? Happy Wednesday. This is Brandon from Comics Kings. Welcome back to the kingdom, or welcome if this is your first time, and welcome back to Creators Corner. Today we are joined by Superstar Writer, the writer of The Death of Doctor Strange, writer of Moon Knight, writer of Timeless and Black Cat. Let's welcome Jed Mackay to the show. Jed, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No problem, man. None at all. I'm a big fan of your work. I guess my favorite thing about your way of writing is you have a great way of embedding Marvel history into your comic books for people that have kind of studied Marvel comics over the years. One of my favorite parts is that's the Death of Doctor Strange using the Silver Age version of Stephen Strange. What actually got you into comic books?
I've been in comic books. I mean, it's basically how I started learning how to read. I came up reading Tintin books, the Barks and Don Rosa, Uncle Scrooge, Donald Duck stuff. So it's just kind of been like there from the beginning. Grew up reading that stuff, and then moved into reading my dad's old comics. He has boxes and boxes of comics from the 70s. Then just kind of progressed throughout there, and until I got to where I'm at now.
100%, man. And did you have a favorite comic book growing up?
It's hard to say because it was just kind of like a broad range of stuff.
Right.
Like my favorite is probably Conan, the old one with Barry Windsor Smith drawing.
Right.
It was a very, very formative book. It was great just to see an artist go from where he was in Conan #1, just like progress over the course of a couple of years was amazing until he became the Barry Windsor Smith we all know and love. But yeah, Conan I really loved. Master of Kung Fu I really loved. The Jim Starlin Warlock stuff.
Yes.
It's all just, these are all kind of like the building blocks of my education in comics coming up as a kid.
100%, man. That was kind of my first experience. Those were the first trades I got were Jim Starlin's books. That was the first comic book that my uncle gave me was Captain Marvel 34. Nice. And then I got it signed by Starlin, and then I fell in love ever since. And then I started reading Infinity Gauntlet, and then I started picking up weekly books. And so I guess I could say that was my starting point as well. How did you end up getting into writing?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to write stuff. Like I was always making up stories, ever since I was a kid.
Right.
And it's just kind of something I've always done, whether I'm writing it down or just, making up stories to keep myself from being bored, or, it was something that really appealed to me when I was younger, getting into things like, tabletop role-playing games. It's fun to play the game and all that, but what really excited me or really brought me in was, here's a framework for creating characters that you can create stories with. And that's what I was really interested in. So, as I went on, as I got older, I wanted to, make stories. I would, write things down, write short stories and, have fun with that. And I wanted to make comics especially. And, when I was, younger, I was a teenager, I thought I was going to make my own comics. Like I would write and draw them, do the whole thing myself and be like a real scrappy indie guy. And, as time went on, that became fairly apparent that wasn't going to happen. Like I wasn't a very good artist and I wasn't a very fast artist, but, it was still something, I pursued. I met up with, I made some friends on the internet. We would make comics together. My friend Sheldon Vella, that's how I got my start. And it just kind of snowballed from there. Sheldon got a job working for Marvel and he brought me in to write a story for him. And, over, that was like 10 years ago, but over the period of the decade, eventually got to the point where I'm able to, to write comics, make stories full time now.
100%. And your work lately has been amazing with between Moon Knight, Black Cat, and then Timeless, which I really enjoyed. How did you end up landing this gig? It's an ongoing series, correct? Or is it just the one
Timeless?
shot? Yes.
Just the one shot.
Gotcha. So let's talk about it a little bit. What was your approach to this story and talking about Kang and getting into the multiverse of Marvel right now?
So that came about in Jeepers, July, August, I think. Right. I was working on Moon Knight for Tom Brevoort, And he sent me an email saying, listen, we want to do another one of these kind of preview one shots where we start sowing some seeds, or like giving people some hints about things that are going to happen in the future, the next couple of years. And he's like, well, do you want to do it? I'm like, well, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, well, it's 40 pages. We want it to be a Kang thing. And that's kind of, it's kind of all I was given. But Tom was very clear. He's like, listen, I don't want this just to be like a parade of previews. Like, I want this to be first and foremost, like, exciting and an interesting Kang story. And then, the previews are kind of like the icing on the cake.
Right.
So, going into it, like, I'd written Kang before in Avengers Mech Strike, but in that, it was like, that was sort of a simpler story where,
right.
He's very much kind of like your mustache twirling villain.
Right.
So, this time I went back to like some of the more, classic portrayals of Kang, like, Kang Dynasty, stuff like that. And to get, more into the character's head, because, he's not just a villain in this. He's, our central character. He's the guy who we're looking at as
right.
who he is. He's certainly a villain, but, to himself, he is his own hero, but as, the cliche goes. So the kind of push there was to figure out, how does Kang look at himself? We put this outside observer character in, Dr. Petrov, and he's sort of giving us his treatise basically on what he thinks Kang's whole deal is. And, and that's, it was just it's kind of a fun way to do it. It was, there's an argument to be made that the kind of central concept is, what if Doctor Who was an asshole? And that's kind of what we see here with, Kang and Petrov going through time and getting up to violent shenanigans.
Right. And it's really interesting when you think about Kang, because he appeared in Young Avengers, obviously as a younger version of himself. Yep. We've seen many different interpretations. We just came off a miniseries with Kang, and we're getting a lot of MCU hype with Kang. It's how much research did you prepare for this story? Because, like you said, you were more into depth into this character rather than in Mech Strike, where he's kind of more of a cliche villain, more like a fun character. What was kind of your approach when you went to write him? Like, did you go back and read some of his more classic work, or did you always kind of like have this understanding of him?
I mean, for me, mostly it was getting to that Avengers run with the Kang Dynasty. I think that's one of the best Kang stories going, because, it's Kang's a character that he's got a long history and an exceptionally complicated one. But I think that's like a particular kind of shiny moment for him where he's a real threat. This, that's like what, 12 issues, that storyline? Like, it went on forever. I mean,
I believe so.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that as a slant. Like, it was a great long form extended Avengers story, and Kang is just one of like the great Avengers villains. So for him to have that,
right?
Sorry,
and right. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you cut out for a second. But all right, if you are allowed to talk about some of the teasers that we saw in here, obviously we talked about Miracle Man coming back. Do we know who's going to be writing that, or how that's going to fit into the Marvel universe? Is there anything you can talk about kind of the ending of Timeless?
I mean, if I knew anything that I could tell you about Miracle Man, it would be all over the internet already. Like, there's nothing I can really say about that.
Right.
So like, as far as their teasers or looks to the future, there's not really much I can say, because, I mean, obviously these are things that are going to be happening in the future. In some instances, I don't actually know what they are, like how they're going to work, because we were putting the book together. We got sent it out to the various offices saying, we're going to have previews. Do you have stuff you want to put in, or stuff you'd like us to show? And they'd say, well, show this image. I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure what that means, but sure, okay, stuff like that. And, when we're looking at the sort of, Kang looking at his different screens there, when he was looking at those snapshots of time, he's looking at things that, will happen, things that will happen differently, and other things that just won't happen, or things that could happen.
Right.
So not every single screen there is going to be something you're going to see in the next couple of years. Maybe, it's something that's going further down the line, or maybe it's something that was corrected when he fixed the timeline.
Right. So that's actually really interesting to hear, because the way that I've been kind of seeing Marvel lately is there's been like this huge brain trust. And I feel like in a few years, we're going to combine kind of what the X-Men are doing, the Fantastic Four are doing, because I know Dan Slott is building up to his Reckoning War. And then we're doing a lot of big things with Peter Parker. And then obviously, like, I think the Eternals are going to end up crossing over in here. So that's kind of like what I've been thinking. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know what you can talk about it, but I really did.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry.
like they're you're gonna get that. You know,
Right.
we have our summits where we get together, well, online lately, and talk about what's happening in everybody's books and how that can affect other people's stuff. But at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen in every single book going forward. It's just it's we'd be there all week,
Right.
So like a lot of the big stuff, yeah, I know what's going to happen. Other stuff, I don't. So we'll see. Just kind of see how it shakes out.
Right. Let's talk about something you do know that is coming out. That's your Death of Doctor Strange. What kind of got you to bring back the Silver Age version after killing off the original version of Doctor Strange?
That actually was kind of baked in the concept when it came to me. I guess it was something that Tom Brevoort had been kicking around for like years, just this kind of idea. And when it came time to get into Death of Doctor Strange, what happened was I finished writing the King of Black Cat crossover with Doctor Strange in it. I was thinking to myself, oh, I need to get another book. And I noticed, there's no Doctor Strange book going. There's no Doctor Strange book announced. So I emailed the editor of Doctor Strange and said, hey, can I write Doctor Strange, please? And he's like, sure. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so it's that easy. He's like, yeah, we're going to kill him and you can write it. And I was like, oh.
I don't want to do that.
Sure, okay. I'm like, yeah, no, all right, I'll do it. So yeah, that was kind of this idea that, Strange had been killed and that his murder was going to be investigated by this younger version of himself, this kind of like Strange Tales version of himself, which I thought was, very kind of elegant way to go about it. But yeah, I'd love to take credit for it, but no, that was Tom's idea.
No, I wish you could take credit. Well, I know a lot of people when it was coming out thought like Death of Doctor Strange is going to be like Death of Inhumans, Death of X, kind of like other versions of comic book dice that we've seen. And then years later, Marvel's like, oh no, we're going to undo it. We're going to like bring everyone back because we knew that was a mistake, right? Like killing Wolverine, getting rid of Cyclops, getting rid of the Inhumans. So that's what I was. So I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm always about, for Doctor Strange, I feel like him as a character should only have an ongoing series when someone has something thoughtful to share with them. Like I feel like certain characters, like your Spider-Man, your Captain America, Black Panther, should always have ongoing series. X-Men should always have ongoing series. I feel like Doctor Strange is a character that should only come with a voice and not necessarily like we need to have one on the shelves 24/7.
Yeah, but I mean, I could argue that about basically any character. Like, you want any character, any run to be good. You don't want to just be like, we'll just throw some shit out there and, the kids will eat it up,
Well, I mean, no shade, but I kind of thought that was what Mark Waid did. I'm a huge Mark Waid fan. He's one of my favorite writers, but his Doctor Strange to me would kind of enforce those feelings because I just came off reading at the time Jason Aaron and Donny Cates, and then Mark Waid was coming out. That was the order that I kind of read everything in. So bringing back the Silver Age Doctor Strange, that was another series that I was currently reading at the time. So I was really excited to see that happening. And then his relationship with Clea, how do you kind of see their relationship over the lost time that they've had together?
I mean, it's meant to be something that's kind of tragic because, in the previous run, Strange basically bargained away all Clea's memories of, their whole relationship. He bargained away to put the universe back together. And when he died, then Mephisto was like, whatever, you can have him back because it's a lot of fun, because now here's even more pain being created by undoing this. And then meanwhile, there's even more, pain or tragedy brought into it because she still sees Doctor Strange. She sees Stephen Strange as alive, but it's at a point where he barely knows her. And so you have these people who have been trying to get back together, and it's just that the connection cannot be made for whatever reason. And it's something I really like about that.
100%. And I kind of like right now how we're going back to what Doctor Strange is. He is a doctor first and foremost. He's a scientist first, but he's also really smart in his arrogance. So I'm really glad that we're starting to see this in the book. We have one more issue left. For anyone who's not reading, what would you tell them now to like kind of get on board with it? Like where are we going to go? And why is this important for future Doctor Strange stories?
Well, what we're doing is we're setting up what the world of Doctor Strange is going to look like going forward. Like, you know, the Death of Doctor Strange #5 is coming out in a few weeks, I think towards the end of the month. And that's going to basically set kind of the new status quo that we're going to pick up on in Strange #1 when that comes out in March.
Right.
And then from there, we're going to see that. So, you know, what I can tell people to pick up Death of Doctor Strange is, like, I know people were really skeptical when we announced it. You know, people are very skeptical of death of everything, or this character dies.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like we surprised people right off the bat, because usually death of so-and-so means there's going to be 5 issues leading up to the point where they die. Death of Doctor Strange, we killed him off on like page, 21 or something.
Right.
He dies right at the get-go. We get it right out there, and then say, well, now we have room to kind of surprise you. And now we have room to show you maybe something new. And I think that's something that surprised a lot of people, because I know people were very weary going into this. You know, no one really wanted to give it much of a chance until they started reading it. And I think that it's kind of found a lot of ground that way. So,
right.
To get people into it, I'd say, give it a chance. Other people have been surprised. Perhaps you will be too.
Right. We're kind of in this environment now where we've seen a lot of issue number ones get a whole lot of kickback from comic book fans, just going all over Twitter. We've seen it with writers like Tom Taylor. We've seen it with Al Ewing. We've seen it with Ron V, Donny Cates, all of like some of the best writers in comic books getting a lot of this. So again, like for all the readers, give it a shot. Like I was skeptical at first, and I read it. It's one of my favorite books on the shelves right now, up there with Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil. What was really interesting was at the end of the 4th issue, it turned out to be Caecilius, who in Strange Tales was always kind of like the number 3 guy in that book. He was he was always, because I mean, I think every second or every third story in Strange Tales, there's like Mordo just messing with Strange, and Mordo always had his goon Caecilius, who didn't even get a name for, I don't remember at which point he was named. He was there. He was like appeared for like 10 issues, then he got a name. It was like kind of weird.
Yeah, he has like his jumpsuit and his like little mustache.
Right.
It was great. And so yeah, I thought it's really interesting, because he's always just referred to as Mordo's disciple, and he's always the first guy who takes it kicking. Like Doctor Strange stomps on Caecilius, then goes on to stomp on Mordo, because Mordo is always throwing Caecilius out in front. But so that's why I thought it was fun to bring back in this series, because he came back in Valkyries, and I hadn't really seen him since, and I thought that there's interesting history to go back. I mean, again, we're dealing with this Strange Tales era Doctor Strange, so it only makes sense to go back to the Strange Tales era to see how those relationships have changed.
Right. I completely agree. When my experiences with reading Strange Tales is it's such an important part of the Marvel Universe, and it's becoming such an important part. I think people are now realizing or seeing a lot of these characters come to fruition in their comic books. So we just saw Shuma Gorath in Savage Avengers. We're still dealing with a lot of lore there from Doctor Strange. And we're seeing we've been seeing a lot of characters being heightened. Like we've seen Nightmare being heightened a little bit. We've seen Mordo over the years, but now it's really cool to see Caecilius. And it's really interesting to see Clea again as well. I know that she will take over as Sorcerer Supreme with Strange. So how we talk about that a little bit? What can we expect in that series, and where are we going? Because I know a lot of the pitches that she's going to be trying to bring back the modern version.
Yeah, I mean, Clea. Thing is with Strange, we wanted to kind of like, shake it up a bit and try something a little different.
Right.
And I think Clea is a really interesting character to do that with, given that she really has not had a whole lot of spotlight in the last 20 years,
right.
If not more. But also, she's a character that I find interesting because for a long time she's just always been seen as Doctor Strange's girlfriend or like Doctor Strange's wife, and she's got a whole history outside of that. And the thing I find really interesting about her is that she's not human. She's
Right.
Faltine Maruk hybrid, and the Faltine are insane alien monsters.
Right.
So this is someone who's going to have a wildly different take on how she's going to go about her duties, or how she's going to go forward in her life. Because the thing about the Faltine is they're not used to not getting what they want. You look at Dormammu, you look at Umar, and these are creatures who are ruled by their desires. They want something, whether it's conquest, whether it's domination, or in Clea's case, she wants what is hers, which is Stephen Strange, and she's not going to suffer anybody to take that from her.
Right. So when you're talking about like desires and like what people want out of their life, what is your approach to that with Stephen, other than just being like a doctor, being the Sorcerer Supreme? Like, what do you think his end game is a lot of times?
Stephen Strange?
Yes.
I guess, what other Steve would you be talking about?
Steve Rogers,
Yeah. As much apple pie as he can eat. No, the thing about Stephen Strange I find interesting is he's usually dealing with things on a scale that no one else is fully aware of.
Right.
You've got your superheroes who all have generally a very similar focus, be it crime, world conquerors, aliens and stuff like that. Whereas Doctor Strange he's not alone, but there's not really many other people working at the same level as he is in his field, which is magic.
Right.
And the other dimensions and stuff like that. Like, he's got his crew. There's the various sorcerers around the world, but it's it's tough to point to another magician and say here's someone who's working at Strange's level. Not in the same way where you look at, say, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America on the Avengers and say, okay, well, these guys are all doing the same thing. They're all punching Thanos in the face or like stamping on Ultron or something like that. Whereas when Shuma Gorath comes calling, it's Doctor Strange, and he's the guy who's on the front line for that. So that's what I think is most interesting about him, is that most people don't know what he does or how much he does or what he's responsible for, which we kind of touched on in Death of Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. There's all this stuff below the surface that he takes care of, and when he's gone, someone's got to step up to take care of it. And it's all stuff that people were not previously aware of. If Strange is doing his job right, the rest of the world doesn't know he's doing it.
Right. So that's really interesting, because I was just talking with a buddy of mine the other day about who has one of the more underrated rogues galleries. And that was a point that we brought up, is whenever you see some of these characters, you can either call on just a handful of people. You can call on Brother Voodoo or Doctor Strange or probably Wong, and we've seen Wong kick some ass. So I think Wong is a pretty cool character.
Yeah.
So that to me is really interesting.
In Strange, we're going to see a lot of Wong as well.
Oh, I love Wong.
Because so Strange is very much it's Clea's headlining the book, but Wong is like right there as her partner in trying to. Well, because again, Wong is like the veteran, aide or guardian of the Sorcerer Supreme. So all of a sudden he's got a new Sorcerer Supreme he's got to look after, and he is really hoping it goes better than the last Sorcerer Supreme he looked after.
Right, who ended up killing him. What would you say are some of your favorite Doctor Strange stories out there that you kind of like took inspiration from for this book, or used to catch up and read?
Kind of runs the gamut, really. Like, this is saying Strange Tales is a big favorite because you start right from the first, and it's just so like weird and strange, and like everything's completely off the wall, and they just throw anything at the wall, everything through the window and see what happens. They're like a Strange running around the world, and Mordo's chasing them, and then there's ghosts, and then they go to other dimensions, and it's it's such a departure for a lot of comics at the time. And I think it's part of the reason why, as a character, he's so enduring. I'm not, kind of dip in here and there. I really like Donnie's Doctor Strange. I think it's my favorite thing that Donnie's done.
You did get Bast the Dog in there, so
right. I think he's a wonderful character. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
bad.
I've tried to steal him and put him in Black Cat permanently.
Right.
So
Yeah, I've been catching up on Black Cat on Marvel Unlimited. There are a lot of books that I'm pulling, and um, I just started reading Black Cat. I've been enjoying. I think I'm on issue, I think 7. Yeah, I'm on issue 7. I think I read that
okay,
last night. So
nice.
I'm not too aware of the second series yet, but I am catching up on that. We can get to Black Cat in a little bit, but Bats is kind of cool. I like Bats. My favorite probably has to be The Oath, still by Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah,
Even though we did get a lot of
I
Wong,
mean
and that was a really cool story. Even
I mean,
before
yeah, like
Benedict
the Oath is
Cumberbatch posted
iconic.
it.
Like it's
Right.
all time. And there's some like I kind of like dipping in and out of the weird '90s stuff because Doctor Strange went completely off the rails through the '90s, and I find it
Right.
really interesting in a way that like it can never be done now because you know Doctor Strange is now a tougher comic to sell, and so just the wild swings that it took in the '90s, I still find very interesting. Like the Strange and Vincent Stevens stuff, the the War of the Seven Spheres. Strange went to go fight for like 5,000 years off panel,
Right.
and yeah, there's just some really giant '90s swings that they don't always land, but I really enjoy the ambition of them.
Right. And what makes you think that Doctor Strange, or what gave you like the impression that Doctor Strange is a harder sell? Is it because like he has a very niche like fan base, or is it because of the attention he got in Strange Tales, or what about it makes it a
No, I mean,
tougher character?
it's a good question. I mean, why I say he's a tough sell is because he doesn't sell comic books, which is why we don't have an ongoing Doctor Strange series. So we kind of try some different things to get people interested in the character. I don't think it's not a fault of the character. I think it's just we just need to find the right thing that makes the readers excited about it, and
Right.
people can connect with. I think for a lot of people, the magic stuff is harder to connect with than other superhero stuff. For a while, that was the same with, for instance, cosmic stuff, but that's kind of become more popular as time went on. So I don't think there's any reason why Doctor Strange couldn't be a great seller. We just gotta figure out a way to get people to care, to get
Right.
people involved, get people following on to see what happens next, and to fall in love with these characters.
Right. And I kind of think giving him that new status quo, I have a feeling we're gonna get in Strange, bringing in Clea, a great female character, then bringing back Steven. I think that'll be a great way for people to get familiar. Something that like I've noticed is we have a larger community now. People are into comic books now more than ever, and that was mostly because of COVID.
Mm.
So I think a lot of times what they associate with Doctor Strange is exactly what they see in the movies. Which is understandable. And this is really the first time we're seeing a new status quo for Doctor Strange. So I think
No.
now is the perfect time for that to happen, for him to get that audience, especially
Yeah,
coming
I think
off
so.
Multiverse of Madness and everything.
Yeah, and that's like, there's an argument to be made that not having a Stephen Strange book going while the new movie comes out could be a problem, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like anytime someone wants to read classic Doctor Strange, there's any
Right.
number of it out there, and I think people being more interested in Doctor Strange, being more interested in the magic side of the Marvel universe, I think there's something for them in Strange when we have it coming out in March.
Right. I do like to go to the chat and answer a few questions. A question: what has it been like writing a few books to writing some of Marvel's biggest stories?
Wes from Future Specs, what's up, fellas? I didn't know those guys a while back. It's been kind of surprising, really. I did my first Marvel work about 10, 11 years ago now, but it's only in the last few years that I've been working steadily. So I started with my first series was a digital only Daughters of the Dragon series, and I went from there to a fill-in Daredevil series, and then kind of on and on. I've been very lucky that been able to kind of build momentum.
Right.
People seem to enjoy the books that I've been working on, with the whole broad range of talented collaborators that I've been lucky enough to work with. And yeah, I mean, I can basically just say I've been very lucky. I think the work I do is good, but also, in comic books, a lot of it just kind of comes down to the right place and the right time.
Right.
And working with Doctor Strange has been huge. Working with Moon Knight has been a huge opportunity, and a rare opportunity given how infrequently he's got a series going. So, and then doing Timeless, which was a real feather in my cap, professionally speaking. So yeah, no, it's been a great experience, and I'm just kind of hoping I can continue to kind of keep that momentum going.
Right. Timeless has been one of the more fun Kang stories that we've had. And I've got some pretty good Kang stories, but I think this is like the most fun and the most kind of cohesive time traveling that we've had. A lot of times when we bring up time travel, it's like automatically a headache, and it feels like you're reading Scott Snyder and Grant Morrison coming together. So, but this read really cohesively. You said how you emailed Marvel asking for Doctor Strange. How did you land Moon Knight? Did you send them another email, or did you give them a call?
No, that one actually that came to me. I had done Avengers Max Strike for Tom Brevoort in his office. It was the first time I worked with Tom. And then, that fall, he sent me an email saying, we're looking to put together a Moon Knight book. We don't know what we want it to look like yet, but I'm kind of casting my net wide, emailing different writers to see what kind of ideas they had. So, I knew immediately I was in competition with other people for the book. But I was very excited because, I really like Moon Knight. I think he's a really cool character. And like I said, the chance to write a Moon Knight book only comes along every so many years.
Once every Marvel reboot.
I mean, you're probably not far off, So, I think it's like a week. It took me to put together a pitch saying like, here's what I think we should do with this character. Here's the first 5 issues, how it would go. Here's kind of the general idea, and send it off and send it back and say, okay, well, this isn't going to work. We like this idea. Maybe switch this around. So, I revised it, sent it off again, and then got the email back, said, okay, well, you can write number 1 now. It's like, oh, okay. Like at that point, I hadn't realized I had the job until they told me it was okay to start writing number 1. But yeah, I was very pleased. It was very exciting. And Moon Knight has been, a great experience.
Right. That has been, in my mind, again, one of the better books in Marvel. I wouldn't have asked you to come on the show if I didn't enjoy it. But kind of what has it been like building a relationship with all of these artists? Like you've been working with Alessandro Capuccio, Lee Garbett, Travel Foreman on Black Cat. What has been your experience working with these different artists and building those relationships?
I mean, it's been great. Every artist is going to be a different relationship that you create. Some people like to be in really close contact. Other people like to just kind of be left alone to do their business. And it's just kind of, doing things in a way that everybody feels supported, but also comfortable. Not like they've always got someone looking over their shoulder, like, saying, hey, what's going on? What's this? So, everyone I've worked with has been great to work with in whichever way they prefer to work with me. And I've had a lot of luck in working with just really talented people. When I heard that my first series, Nick's like, yeah, we got Travel Foreman on. And I was like, really? Like, that's huge. Like, that's amazing.
Right. From the Ultimates. From Al Ewing's Ultimates. Which is a great story. My friend Eric says, Jed, it seems like you have a real love for street level heroes. Was doing a murder mystery book for Strange a way to lean more towards that realm?
Not really in that respect, though. It is funny because when I initially emailed Darren to ask if I could write Strange, he's like, yeah, actually, sure. He's like, we've got some stuff and I'll send it to you. I'm like, great. And like in the meantime, I wrote a pitch for like a street level Strange. I'm like, I think this could be like a really interesting kind of shift of focus for Strange. He's like, yeah, actually, we're going to kill him. So maybe just hang on to that for some other time.
Do you think you're ever get back to writing? Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing with when you're doing these pitches or have these ideas, is nothing
Right.
ever goes to waste. You know, you can always save it and recycle it for something else. Because I keep everything in my big pile of notes, and when I need a new character or when I need a new idea or even just a name, I go back and just start sifting through and see what I've come up with before that I haven't used and what I can use in the future.
Right. And then this one, oh, we already got to that one. I was meant to click done. Any dream books you would love to work on for Marvel or DC, asked by the Comic Book Report.
The answer I always give for Marvel is, Alpha Flight. I'm Canadian. I love to see my crew of Canadian screw ups get some time in the spotlight. But man, you want to talk about a property that cannot sell books? It's Alpha Flight, no matter how much I love them.
Well, they just came off a miniseries. It was like Camouflage, but I don't know. Maybe Alpha Flight will come back around once we're in the Reckoning War, and they're still pissed off at Abigail Brand and Carol Danvers.
Yeah, but I mean, Gamma Flight was like half Americans. Doesn't count.
Yeah, it kind of does, but So with Moon Knight, what was the original pitch?
I mean, it basically was what we've got right now.
Right.
It's amusingly enough, it wasn't until I'd sent in my original pitch that I included who I wanted the big bad guy for the first big arc to be, being Zodiac, and right. So I sent off this pitch, and then I immediately sent off another email like a couple hours later saying, "Oh wait, what about Zodiac from Dark Reign Zodiac? I think he'd be a great villain." Blah 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 blah. So Zodiac didn't enter into it until like the second round of revisions. Originally was Moon Knight was going up against an evil business person who was messing with his neighborhood
right.
for profit, and that that went out the window, and then it became more of this kind of like head-to-head battle of values or battle of philosophies with between Moon Knight and Zodiac.
100%, man. So it's really weird because a lot of people don't know a whole lot about Zodiac. He's kind of an Avengers villain, and he kind of fell off, and he hasn't really been used for years. Why Zodiac? Are we building to somebody bigger, or what kind of inspired you to choose Zodiac as the first villain?
Part of it is I've always kind of had Zodiac in the back of my mind. I bought the Dark Reign Zodiac issues when they came out, and I think he's a character that he had a great look. I think he's got an interesting outlook to kind of like pit against a character, and also he's someone that doesn't have a lot of history. He's appeared in like 5 issues, and I think that's he presents a really useful foil for Moon Knight, in that Moon Knight at the point in time which we get him is he's someone who's desperately looking for something to believe in, whereas Zodiac is someone who doesn't believe in anything. And I think that's really a really interesting dynamic to play with and to kind of have them knock heads.
Right. And what is your perspective on Moon Knight's religion and kind of the values that he holds? Because we've kind of been seeing that a little bit in this book. It's actually been a big concept of this book. It's his relationship with Khonshu.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the whole thrust of the book as we started off with, because we're at a point where Mark's entire superhero lifestyle has revolved around whatever his relationship is with Khonshu, whether it's good or bad or what have you, because he's the fist of Khonshu. But at this point in time, we have Khonshu sort of definitively off the table. Excuse me. After the events of the Age of Khonshu, Khonshu's been imprisoned in Asgard. So we're looking at Mark, where he's trying to answer that question himself. He's like, what do I look like without Khonshu? Who am I without Khonshu? Yet, he refuses to give up the title of the Fist of Khonshu because, as we see in the book, he's basically lost everything else in his life. If he gives up that identity of Moon Knight, then what's left for him? Right.
He's just Mark Spector, who's kind of a depressed human being. But I mean, like we've seen a lot of it's harder for Moon Knight because he's kind of had a really niche fan base over the years, and we've gotten a few good runs, but this is like the first time probably since Doug Mensch that I've read where we kind of get into the philosophy and the psychological values of Mark Spector and why he's so of a kind of a singular person. Really, he's like very to himself. He keeps a lot of his emotions bottled up.
To be fair, Mark is actually by definition a very plural person, given his dissociative identity disorder, rather than singular. But yeah, like when we started working on the book, kind of one of the touchstones or the points I wanted to stick with Moon Knight is I wanted the readers to be as kind of alienated from Moon Knight as any other character. That's why there's no thought captions in the book. Like we don't have the caption saying I'm Moon Knight and I'm feeling like this. Instead, everything's expressed in dialogue. Everything's expressed in action. So, the readers put on the same footing as any other character in the book, which, for me was a big change, given that, if you've been reading Black Cat, how much I love thought captions. I just put them all, I use them like a bad chef uses salt. So,
or like Hickman uses an info dump.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
But to the same respect, that's why through the series we very rarely see Mark's face. He's either Mr. Knight or he's Moon Knight. He's always got a mask on because that's how I want the reader to look at him. He's always trying to keep things under the surface because he's someone who is, he's someone who's very familiar about what it looks like when he loses control. He beats the Avengers and takes over the world.
Right. And what's coming up down the road for Moon Knight that you can talk about? Do you have anything that you can announce with this title? Anything that you can talk about for the next arc that we're going to be in?
So Moon Knight number 7 is out in a few weeks. We're going to see Moon Knight. So, this is after, after he built all this stuff, Zodiac came and blew it up, blew his life up, blew up the Midnight Mission, kicked the hell out of him. And with number 7, we see Mark, start to fight back. So he's out hitting the streets. He's out looking for Zodiac, and we're going to see how that progresses. And as well, we're going to see the other stuff that happens in his life. Like, it's in Devil's Reign number 1, he was arrested by the Thunderbolts.
Right.
So we're going to see what happens after that in Devil's Reign Moon Knight, the one shot. So we're going to see Mark in prison. He's going to be in the Myrmidon with all these heroes and villains, and we're going to see, what that does to him. What kind of effect does taking, one of the most violent men in the world off the streets and putting him in a prison with a huge group of extremely violent people, how does that work? How does that shake out? And what damage is that going to do to him?
Right. And also, who is he going to punch in the face?
I mean, and how badly is he going to hurt a bunch of people?
Right. That's going to be really exciting. I was kind of surprised to see him get arrested in Devil's Reign. Was that all part of the plan, or was that kind of something that got thrown in and you to work around?
Yeah, I mean, that was just something Chip did. He was, saying who's a good street level character to use as an illustration of the Thunderbolts out there. And he's like, well, we'll use Moon Knight. So then that presented us with the opportunity to, try some different stuff out. So we had Devil's Reign Moon Knight where, we have Mark in prison, and then we have Moon Knight number 8, which shows the events of, what happened while Mark was in prison. While he's in prison off doing this, the streets are still there, and there's still people who need their heads cracked.
Right. Hello? I think you... Oh. Hello? Can you hear me?
Did you?
Hello? Can you hear me, Jed?
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're frozen a little bit. But...
Yeah, you were frozen on my end too. I lost you after you said cracking heads.
Okay, so I think I can hear you now. Are we back?
Yeah. So all I heard was people who need their heads cracked.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. Just because Moon Knight's in prison doesn't mean that things stop happening on the street. So we're going to see who's filling in and taking his place while he's gone.
Right. 100%. Let's switch gears over to Black Cat. As I said earlier, I'm still catching up. I've been enjoying what I've read so far. My friend Fable, who actually was the one who told me, he's like, "Yo, you got to read this book," and I was like, "All right, I'll read it." He says, "I don't know if you could answer this, but are you continuing Black Cat, or is it over? Is it still coming out?"
Black Cat series is finished. Finished with Giant Size Black Cat. Came out last month. However, I do have a few more Black Cat things I've been working on. Giant Size Mary Jane and Black Cat comes out this month, I believe, which is really good. CF who was the longest running Black Cat artist, drew it. He drew the hell out of it. It's a 30-page Giant Size special, so it's a lot of fun. I'm very excited for it to come out. I think it's a very kind of satisfying kind of coda to put on the end of the Black Cat series. As well, I wrote a Amazing Spider-Man. I can never keep the Amazing Spider-Man numbering straight. Let me see. Hang on a second.
I think it was the last one. I think it was with Marcelo Fiera, right?
No, it's one coming out. Nope. It's coming out this month. Amazing Spider-Man 87, January 26th. And we're going to see Felicia and Captain America trying to get Peter Parker back on his feet. So they're going to be in the role of trainers. We're going to get our Rocky situation on here.
There we go. Or your Cobra Kai situation, hang him by a wheelchair or with the rope and see if he can stand up on his own from season 3. Or that was probably season 2.
But yeah,
did
so
you see season 4 yet?
I haven't seen any Cobra Kai.
It was good.
I don't watch a lot of TV, I'm afraid. I got too many books to write.
That's not I really enjoy Cobra Kai. I like the nostalgia in it, but when you get time, I would definitely go back and give it a listen to. In hindsight, what has been working on Black Cat kind of been like it extending her audience and her viewership?
It was really exciting because Black Cat was not a book that anybody expected to do particularly well. If you're following mainstream comics, it's pretty regular to see a book hit 5 issues and that's it.
Right.
So, taking, I love Black Cat. I think Felicia's a fantastic character. I love working with her, but at the same time, she's not your Spider-Mans or your Captain Marvels or your Iron Mans who you can count on the kind of
the numbers,
fan momentum to sell a book. Yeah. So, when we started out, I think Nick told me, he's like, okay, if we can get to 10 issues, we'll be lucky. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll plan for 10 issues. And that way, if I get to 10 and we get canceled, I can still be happy. We'll still call it a job well done. But we just kind of kept going past that to the point where when we finally did finish up, we had, 25 issues or, 23 issues with 2 annuals, which for a Black Cat series is pretty good.
Right. I would say anything at this point that can be collected into an omnibus, I would say it's pretty good. I could definitely see that getting an omni down the road. Why did they
that'd be great.
Split it up into 2 series? Into 2 different issue numbers?
Because basically when COVID shut everything down,
right?
Black Cat was one of the titles at the kind of the level where they just kind of like, okay, we really can only afford to really push our big titles. So everything else kind of went on hiatus. So Black Cat was off for a few months. And when it came back, this may surprise you, but Marvel, I know it's kind of a shocker. But
you just cut out?
Okay, we're going to start with number 1.
Cut out when you said this is
I was going to
say
this. This may shock you, but Marvel likes to have new number 1s.
Oh no, I never knew that. I never knew that. Just variant covers.
Yeah. So when we came back off hiatus, they said, okay, we're bringing Black Cat back. We got a couple things we have to do though. We got to have a new number 1, and we have to start off the 3-part King of Black crossover.
Right.
Because originally, Black Cat Volume 2, number 4 was originally Black Cat Volume 1, number 13. because I had written like from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I got written like to like I think I had like 5 issues in the can when we went on hiatus. So basically, I took the stuff I already written, pushed it forward in the future, and then wrote the King of Black 3-parter and plunked it in there for like 1, 2, and 3.
And then you got to finish everything else up, which I'm probably going to catch up after we get off here. I'm probably going to dive into that before I get to some of the weekly books I picked up today. Before we wrap anything up, do you have anything else coming out that you'd like to talk about? Anything in the future that you're able to talk about?
Not really. No, I think I've got stuff that I'm working on, but it's not nailed down. It's certainly a long way away from being announced. But currently, basically everything I've been working on that is going to happen is announced. So we've got Death of Doctor Strange is ending this month. If you haven't been reading that, it's just check it out. Though if you've been listening to the show, now you know what happens in it. But yeah, we've got Strange starting in March. We've got Marcello Fiera on it, who did Death of Doctor Strange Spider-Man. His pencil pages I've seen are just absolutely, there's just such like warmth and life when you see like bare pencils before inks go in. I mean, I understand, inks serve an important purpose. Is they finish the art, but it's just something about seeing those pencils, and his pencils just look so great.
Right, he's
so I think
definitely been
excited.
One of my favorite artists on Amazing Spider-Man.
And he just kind of like I think he's quite young. Oh, no, I heard you.
Yeah, he's a lot more.
I think he's relatively new. Like
right. I was kind of off of the Nick Spencer run, but then I read, I think he did issues like 42 and 43 with James Jonah Jameson, and I was like, this is awesome. So that's what actually kept me reading that title at the time, was his artwork. So like every time like I saw him in that book, I was like, I'm picking it up again. So I'm glad that he's getting more work, and he's getting to do Doctor Strange now. So to me, that was really exciting to see. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And before we leave, we ask all the guests, this is who's your favorite X-Men?
Favorite X-Men? That's a good question. I always joke that I wanted to write. I mean, there's like very serious I'd like to do with characters,
right?
And I wanted to kind of collect some of my favorites all in one book. So like a while back, a couple of years ago, I pitched a Dazzler book because I really like Dazzler. I think she's a really interesting character that has had wildly different takes and also gets a lot of shit. Right. And I kind of like characters that people shit on a lot, because I think it's an interesting opportunity to show people why they should like them. And then I was like, well, we'll be Dazzler, but also we'll have like Dupe, because I really like Dupe. I don't think he's anywhere right now. And like, I really got a kick of the idea of bringing Ugly John back from, Grant Morrison's the issue Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely did at the beginning of E for Extinction, because this mutant who's absolutely useless, and he's somehow jumped the resurrection queue, and everybody knows it. There's something I find very entertaining about that. But yeah,
as long as you didn't say Cyclops, I would have been really okay with anything else.
I mean, I like Cyclops. He's fine.
Havoc's the better Summers. For me, I'd have to go Nightcrawler, and then probably Polaris right after. Polaris, Magneto. I like the House of M. I'm quite fond of it. I wish we kind of got more of that. I wish we could have like after the events of Trial Magneto, I wish we could just like have a session where we see Wanda, Magneto, Quicksilver, and Polaris kind of all sitting around trying to like resolve their family issues, because we never really, they're actually one of the longer, more historic families in Marvel Comics. I think they're the second one next to the Fantastic Four. So I think that would be really beneficial for them. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for.
It's certainly.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna wrap up the show. Thank you everybody for coming out to Creators Corner. This is one of my favorite shows that we do. Getting to talk to so many different creators. We've only been doing this for about 6 months is their 23rd episode. And our next guest is actually going to be Roy Thomas, which will be at the end of January. So once we get a date, I'll be excited to announce that. But that's all I can say now is Roy Thomas will be on the show end of January. So more announcements should be coming out later this week or the following week. As always, you guys, thank you so much for all your support. Take care, you guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.